I'm happy to announce that version 6.1 is finally available for the public to download. This version is mostly about, there's a lot of new features, of course, like there always is with at least once a year I try to do a major release. But this update really, the last year or two, I was starting to get concerned about how busy some of the screens are getting, which is inevitable, right? As you're adding new features, I try my very best to add things in a way that is easy to understand, easy to use, because it's really a benefit for myself if things are easy to use and understand, because obviously it's self-serving that the tech support's lower if people just intuitively know how to use it. And so, and not just for my customers out there, but for my own timing crews, where every year we're usually trying to add 1 or 2 more people, maybe even more this year, it's going to be busy. But so I need it to be easy to use. So this update is really about taking a step back and reorganizing some of the screens. So I do recommend that you watch this video if you are going to use the software. So because there are some changes that could throw you off. But I think you're going to love how things flow now and how they work and how they're organized. They just make more sense. So let's dive in. First thing you'll notice, this is small, this is not going to throw you off, but the installer did change. You'll see that it looks cleaner, nicer, and if you're a new user or even an existing one, it wouldn't be a bad idea to read through this. This is simply like, hey, this is kind of the rules using the software. So, the software costs this much, and once you've bought it, you're free to install it on your computers, and there's no yearly fees unless you want to sign up for the endurance program, which, by the way, a lot of this redesign was funded by those that are endurance members. So it's a great benefit, greatly appreciated. It gives you extra features that your participants love. It gives you features that you can offer as an additional cost for your races if they want to sign up for, like the instant SMS results or something else. And so hopefully it's a win for both of us, but it's definitely a win. Well, it is a win for both of us because I was able to hire a guy named Branson Neal. He's an amazing developer at my office job, Tiger Correctional. We do police software there, and he's got a knack for just finding anything that's inefficient and making it efficient. Anything that's not very clean looking and making it clean looking. He's very detail oriented, good guy. So I paid him a good amount of money to redesign our clock screen, and I think you're gonna like what he's done there. So, but yeah, you can read through this and read about the rules. The only rule really is that if you get out of the business or you get rid of your laptop, the software is not transferable. It's not fair to me if I sacrifice a lot of family time helping, training, supporting someone, and all of a sudden they sell the system, of course include the software with or whatever, and then I got to start brand new with somebody else with no compensation of any kind. And so the software is the only thing that's not transferable. The hardware, it's 100% open source. You sell it, buy your own stuff anywhere you want, all that stuff, but that's kind of the only rule. But still, if you never read through all that, or the new user's email that I send out when you buy the software, this is a summary of that. So click accept, hit install, and you're good to go. I've already installed this version, so I'm going to hit no here. And so let's dive into the changes. So nothing's changed here on the front page except for the version number, so nothing new there. But starting with a create race, you'll notice a big change. So if I go to new race, one thing I didn't like with the old version, and I'm still not 100%, like I'm so used to the old screen that it takes me a second to get my bearings on this one, but I think we're all going to like this layout. So number one, with the old screen, you had essentially everything on one screen except for a couple tabs on the right. And it was just getting to be very busy. Adding new features is good, but at the same time, I don't want to get to where my program is like all the other ones out there that takes you 2 months to learn how to use it. So I'm trying to break things out to where it all makes sense and bite-sized chunks here. So I'll start off with the basic info tab. This is all stuff just about the race. This is and by the way, with the old version, you'll notice that if you change the number of laps, you don't see that on the splits tab it changes the laps there. And so now I've tried to group things together to where the things that interact with each other are all on one screen. And so I'm going to point that out. So we got basic information, and then you go to scoring. And so this is all things related to obviously scoring, the number of displacers and number of scores, and how is, what type of race is this, and how are tiebreakers handled if it's like a cross-country race or whatever. How are winners determined by? Of course, this feature was introduced in the last version too, pretty popular, I think, with people, where it highlights people that, let's say you got a 5K and a 10K going on at the same time, and someone in the 10K decides during the race to drop down to the 5K. Well, you can say, well, hey, if someone finishes less than 30 minutes, highlight them as someone I need to review. And so that's an indicator of, okay, this person finished a 10K in 24 minutes. Probably not legit. They probably dropped down. So it highlights them. That doesn't take them out of the race, doesn't disqualify them automatically, it just highlights them. So that's here on the scoring tab. Anyways, athlete types. So a lot of this is pretty self-explanatory what each one of these do. But again, I tried to just make it to where, for example, on the scoring, in the past, you could select a team or cross-country race, but you didn't see that on the teams tab that this would become enabled or disabled based on that pick. So that's the difference here on this screen. And of course, you can hit the back and next if I didn't say that already. So whichever way you're going to go there. So that is what's changed on the create race screen. The biggest change though is on the clock screen. So let me pull up, I guess while I'm here, let me show you this. So the software has always, and it will always, order races by date in descending order. So if we go down here, you see 7-9, this is another 7-9, then you got 7-8, and then of course you got older years, and even these are grouped 10-26, 10-26, 10-25, and so on. And I do that because obviously we want to float the races you're more interested in to the top. The problem though is, let's say you had a race that was starting at 7 and another one at 7:30 and then 8 and 8:30 and so on. Well, the problem is it still kept that descending order. So the race you wanted to start the day off was at the bottom of the list. And so now I've made it to where you click on a race, and from this point forward, the races are in order, in ascending order. And so what's nice is, of course, that's the order you want to see them in. And now here's the big change you're about to see. So if I hit continue here, it's going to lay all the races out in the order at which you need them. So your first race of the day is at the top, and guess what? I'll also check that race off for you. So really, you just got to open the clock screen and hit spacebar. In the past, all races would start automatically unless you told it otherwise. And so let's actually change this up a little bit to where we say the JV boys is going to start at the same time as the JV girls. So if I go here and bump this back to, I think that was an 8 o'clock start for the JV girls. And so now if I click on time race, you see that 2 8 o'clocks. And so it'll check both those races off. And so I tried to make the software, and not just this area, but a bunch of areas. And one of them I forgot to even mention. So when you click on time race, now by default, check all the races off for you. And so, so that's just something, again, I found myself constantly, because I always encourage people, pull all races in. Even if you're going to time just one at a time, you want to have all the races in the clock screen typically. The reason why is because it gives you the ability to modify anybody's results throughout the whole day, not just the race you're currently timing. It gives you the ability to print any of the races for that day at any time you want, not just the race you're timing. And there's a bunch of other benefits of why you want to have all the races pulled in. And so anyways, that's one other thing, is that it checks off all the races. And the next thing is that it checks off the 2 you want, or the first 1 or 2 or however many that are scheduled to occur that day. So again, less thinking involved. That's my goal. Okay, let me stick back to my notes here and see what all else is new. I guess while we're on the screen, you'll see that the totally new redesign clock screen. This is what has been, this is Branston's works. A lot of this, of course, we tag teamed this. He's the one that designed this panel over here. I'm sure this is going to evolve over time, but I really like that you can see all the clocks. So for example, if you want to start both of these at the same time, the same as normal, you hit the space bar, it starts those races. Okay. So now let's pretend like that some time has passed, you're ready to start the next one. You got 3 different ways you can start it. You can hit the start, and it starts it. Or you can check it off, and then hit the button, or hit the space bar. Either one. So you got 3 different ways you can do that. Of course, if there's multiple races, let's go finish. And this is new too. I'll explain this in a second. You can check off 2 or more. And see, as I check off each one, you'll see that the top button changes. So if I do that, I can click here or hit the space bar and they'll start. So either one. So this is a new redesign clock, and this allows you to see all your clocks at one time instead of having one big clock for just whatever selected race at the top. So there's no more race selection going on. Now there is, I've just lied to you a little bit, there's no more like main race selection. Now if you have like an electronumeric clock or a finished results clock, you may want to determine, because those can only show one race at a time. So I put that back over here on the public display. Now this list was already there. I simply transferred what used to be this selected race here to where it control what clock is visible on the public display to where now it does it based on whatever race you have selected here. So didn't lose any functionality, just changed how you, and most people don't have those clocks, I think. So Or even if they do, like I've got those clocks, but I find myself never using the integration that's there for two reasons. Number one, I'm getting sidetracked, I know, but just go with me for a second. For two reasons. Number one, if I hook the software up to that clock and the software is 100% controlling that clock, yes, that's true that it saves you from having to start the clock manually and sync it up. That's true. But it also ties the clock to the software and to the computer. So guess what? If something happens and the computer restarts, which I've never had this happen. This is just something that as I go time races, I think about. And but if something happens to the computer, let's say, God forbid, your chip computer goes down or the software crashes or whatever, which hopefully that won't happen with this version. There's a lot of improvements to the efficiency and speed and all that stuff. Anyways, if something happens, not only has your chip system gone down until you get it back up, but your clock is also stopped. And so I kind of like having the clock, even though the integration is there, to where it's 100% independent. The same way I like having a camcorder that's not connected with the timing at all. That way, if all things crash, at least I've got a camcorder recording everything. And so if I've got a camcorder recording everything and a clock, an LED clock that's in view of the camcorder, I can essentially do results when I get home if I have to, which I've never had to do that. I'm just saying. So y'all, the whole point with that whole spiel is that the moving of the selection of the race here, that's all that selecting a race does is the LED clock control. And so I guess that most people probably won't use it. Okay, so let's see the other actions and things that have changed here. So let's start at the top and go around. So the bib number box is a little bit bigger because there are some bib numbers that the software supports bigger bib numbers than what the previous versions allowed to put in, and I think it still supports a bigger number. But the likelihood of you putting a number in this, that's big. Let's see here. Yeah, that's still pretty big. But so most races aren't going to use numbers that big. But I did want to increase the size of this box. And so under this box is where that checkbox for starting races appears. This section up here, I wanted to move all the reader information to the top because when you're timing, I want to have access to the readers and see the readers at all times. I don't have to jump back and forth on tabs. And so I moved all the reader information at the top. And so if you click on this box that says capture chip start, you'll see this big. I tried to make this bigger, more in your face. Hey, you are currently capturing chip start times. And in fact, this reminds me of another change I made. And now this is a setting you can turn on and off. You'll see that whenever I check the box that says capture chip start, it checks this automatically. And the reason why I decided to do that is because there is very little risk in checking that box for you. All that does, if you're not familiar, and you can always click on the question mark button if you're not sure, but if you're not familiar with what that does, the auto finish gap, what that means is if you're capturing a chip start, and let's say you forget to uncheck it, which has happened to a few people. If that's a nightmare situation though, if you forget to uncheck it and then people come through and they're finishing. Because you may not know that that's checked because again, in the previous versions, it was on a whole separate tab you're not even looking at. And so if you check the box that says capture chip start, well, the software is told, hey, these reads I'm getting, that's chip start times. Now, you have to remember after everyone leaves to uncheck that, which means now, hey, any reads I get are going to be finishing times or split times or whatever. Well, in the past, I've had a few people that would check the box and then forget about it. And then people come through and they don't know what's going on and they freak out. Now, in those situations, I was able to write a query and transfer those, finishing times over, starting times over to finishing times. And I just simply gave everyone a gun time, for that had that happen. But it's not a fun, that's a 20-minute job for me. And that's not fun. So what I've done is I've made it to where the auto finish gap is checked by default. So what that means is if John Doe runs through the starting line, and let's say not just John Doe, but a whole bunch of people, and you forget to uncheck that box to tell the software, hey, I'm done capturing chip starts. Then what happens is if it's been more than the number of minutes you specified here before we see that tag again, then when we do see that tag again, treat it as a finisher instead of a starter, even though you've told the software I'm doing chip starts. So this feature was originally designed so that you can have people starting and finishing at the same time and the software knows what to do. So I've decided, let's just make that the default. The same way, for example, I make chip time the default time, because if you don't have a chip time, then it uses gun time anyway. And so I've decided, the safest bet is to simply auto check the auto finish gap. Now, if you have a situation where you don't want that, I really can't think of any great situation. But if you have a situation where you don't want that to be the default, you can go to the settings screen. And that is in the options tab or advanced tab. And you can say, don't automatically check off auto finish gap when I am doing a chip start. But I'm going to leave that on. I think that's what that's going to be a safety mechanism, I think, for a lot of people. Okay, so let's actually go back to our cross-country race. Okay, so what else is new? So one thing you'll see is kind of small, but in fact, I'll go and start listening, and you may hear my camera clicking, all kinds of stuff in a second. I don't know if I got any tags close. I probably do. Yeah, let me throw some in front of the antenna here. Just a few. None of these are assigned to the athletes, I guess. Just random tags I got sitting around. But oh, and I don't have my camera on either. Let me go and turn that on. Okay, so we should see under action keys. Yeah, my camera's available. Let me find some tags here. Here we go. Yeah, so you can hear my camera clicking now as it's triggering. So one thing that's new here is you'll see that the numbers, the antenna numbers, are inside the panels. And so, there's also, by the way, with that race selection at the top left, there was some combination of events where it could treat the event as no race is selected. And what's interesting is it would unselect these panels. Now the reader's still reading, but it would freak the person out thinking, oh wait, did my panels just go out? So anyways, that's a new thing here, is that the numbers are inside the grouping there. And one thing that I want to make clear, let me go and refresh this list. I just plugged in my Thinkify reader. One thing I want to make clear is that number, I may switch this list around to where maybe it's columns inside here, and you can actually see per reader which antennas it says are connected. And then eventually I'll work on this too, because right now this is all readers reporting their antenna 4 reads, not just one reader. But so I want to make clear that this list here is the reader you have selected. So if you have more than one reader, like right now I was going to hook up 2, but I've got a USB to Ethernet adapter, and plus I've got an Ethernet port on my laptop, but it's getting late, so I want to go ahead and just do this one. But if you have multiple readers, these light up based on the reader that's selected. And so I put this in here simply so that the reader can tell you, hey, this is what I see as attached. Because if you have 4 antennas connected but you only see 3, that tells you like a cable's bad or something's wrong. So that's the whole reason for these lighting up. Okay, so all that is moved at the top. Let's look at the actions. So if we click on the down arrow, or really click anywhere, okay, anywhere on the clock or anywhere over here, you'll see the list of actions. And so what I've done is I've tried to make it, because in the past, if you wanted to print results, for example, you would have to go over to the action keys, and you'd have to select your race, and then you print your results. These options for printing and stuff were down here. And so that's how you printed results for that particular race. It's kind of disjointed. It didn't make a lot of sense. And so what I've done is we've got it now to where all the actions you need to do for that particular race are under the actions here. So if you need to edit this race's time, you can go here, change the time. Let me bump it. Let's actually bump it forward. Let's bump it up, and then hit save. And now it adjusts just that race's time. Because in the past, you'd have 3 or 4 races, and I would see someone modify just one race's time, not knowing that they need to modify the other ones. Because again, you'd only see one clock at the top, and it's for that selected race. So they'd modify that one race, thinking they've done all the races. And so now it's even more obvious. Oh, look, I've got 2 races that I got to modify. You know, if these start at the same time, if you need to change them both, you can. And so, anyways, that's one of the actions is the edit time. Now you can get rid of this menu by clicking anywhere on the clock again. The other option is the award status. So if you need to see the award status for that particular race. Now this race, let me pull up a different one. So let's go. Now I put in, like I said, a few thousand people in these races, so I can really try to hammer the system and make sure that nothing locked up or froze. And I did find some things. Really, I think the live export, if someone was using that, there were some fields that took a while for the live export to generate. It could freeze the program for a while. And I think the publishing of results up to like run sign up, it was like building division results and team scores, and I improved all that to where it shouldn't lock up or freeze up anymore. Most people didn't use those features, but I think some that were reporting problems. The software is more efficient, by the way, using less RAM. So I think there's a lot of things here where we shouldn't have any reports of anyone having the program freeze or hesitate for a bit. And there was very few people reporting that. And usually when I remoted in, they were using a 4 gigabyte RAM computer, and they had other things running, and it was already near top end before the software even started. But But anyways, on this tab, let's go start these races. And then if we go to award status here, you see this is how it looks. And so this, of course, if you're not familiar, this will highlight the divisions in green when you have enough finishers to claim those awards. And this is smart enough to know, hey, I've only got one person that's under 9 years old that's a male. So when that one person finishes, even though I've got 3 awards we're going to give out, but when that one person finishes or is marked disqualified or whatever, then it'll highlight that as green saying, hey, you're not waiting on anyone for that. So the goal is with this, you can scroll down, and if everything's green, you can print division results, hand it to the race director, and kind of forget about that race. You'll continue timing the rest of the people coming in, but it's not going to change the awards, unless there's some alteration that some disqualification or something. But so anyways, that's the award status. That's moved under here. Race reports, like I was saying earlier, it was kind of confusing if you wanted, just junior girls team results, for example. Well, then it was kind of confusing. How do you get those when you have multiple races in? But now it's simple, I hope. And then the other thing, let's see, you got finish race. Okay, so this is new. Let me tell you where this comes in handy. So I've been reluctant for years to add like a stop clock button. And the reason why is because there's no such thing of stopping a race. Now, in the physical world, there is. You can physically stop, like the race is over, pack up and leave. But in reality, it's like the race has either been started or it hasn't. Because what's happening here is when you start a race, it's simply storing the date timestamp of when the race started and comparing that with now continuously. So now is always moving forward. Therefore, the stopping a race really doesn't make any sense. What if you stopped a race but then needed to put another time in? I mean, it's a little confusing. So what I've done here is I've simply added a finish race button, and it says, hey, are you sure you'd like to finish the race? So you are done timing, you're finished. And what that does is the moment you hit yes, it's going to stop the clock, so you don't have that, you get that kind of mental satisfaction of, okay, the race is not running. But also, that'll also prevent any future reads, or like, for example, if I try to put a time in manually for this race, it won't accept it. So the benefit with this is if you're timing a cross-country race, and let's say the JV races are 100% over, like there's no more kids out there, no stragglers waiting on, and you're timing the varsity races. And if a coach who is meaning to do well, meaning to do you a favor, and he's going to bring over all of the tags for the kids who didn't run, he's got maybe tags and bibs assigned to athletes that never showed up, and maybe he's also got the tags for the kids that did run, and he wants to return them to you. Well, the problem is if he walks over the finish line, you could pick all those kids up as finishers if you still had that race pulled in. And so now you can say finish race, which means, hey, ignore any other reads I get for this event. And so that's the one benefit you get, besides the mental satisfaction of not seeing that clock going, I guess. But let's say that you do realize, let's say you finish the race and then realize, oh, wait, we do have a kid out there that we're still waiting on. Well, you could leave it as finished until you see him coming. Of course, that's a little bit of a risky thing, because what if you don't see him coming? But you can also simply do undo finish. And then it says, oh, are you sure you want to undo? Yes, and it puts it right back like you never finished it to begin with. Because again, it's simply comparing now, which is continuing to move forward, versus when the race started. But let's say that you are done, and let's say you're actually testing the system out, you want to reset it back to 0. You want to clear all results, you're just, maybe it's the day before the race, you're testing things out. You click on the clock, and you'll see that the reset race is grayed out. And the reason why is because I'm trying to make reset race a little more difficult to use. Because again, over the years, I've seen people that finish timing a race, obviously this is more new customers. Now, it very rarely happens, but I've seen it happen where they finish timing a race and something in their brain says, hey, I'm done timing. I need to do something that represents I'm done timing. So they think they got to reset the race back to 0. Like, hey, I'm done. I'm going to reset it back. Well, I guess it never clicks. I'll wait, because the software prompts you 2 times saying, hey, whoa, stop. Are you 100% sure you want to wipe away all your results and set it back to 0? Well, I know how it is. I mean, I do the same thing. You just click yes trying to get through the prompts. You're not paying attention. Well, they'll lose all their results. And so what I've tried to do is make it to where you have to hit finish race, which means I'm done timing. And then it's an extra step of doing a restart race. And then again, it says, are you sure you'd like to reset the race? And if you hit yes, now here's the thing. I don't have, I think this race, if the race, this is obviously a test scenario, but if the race has results and the race was started at or very close or after the scheduled start time, then I still force a backup of your database, because what if someone resets their race still by mistake and loses all their results. Well, then I create a backup in the background to make sure you're fine. But so that still works that way. But that's how you reset the rest. So that's the one thing you want to make sure that you're aware of, because I think the rest of it's pretty intuitive. But I have had a couple of the beta testers. And by the way, thank you for the nearly 100 beta testers over the past week that have been trying to break it. Any small headaches or anything, I've got them all in here to where all that's fixed. And so I feel good about this update. Thanks to y'all. So anyways, so the one thing that people have said is it's like, hey, I'm not sure how to reset it. So I want to make sure you're aware you're going to test doing the finish, and then you can do a reset. Oh, okay, the final thing, at least on this screen I can see right now, is the tabs. And we still may change this because I'm finding myself, I still wish I could see both results and athletes. I think that was requested by Terry. Y'all don't know him, but Peak Performance Timing. So I think I'm kind of agreeing with him, but I like that things are getting simpler. There's less tabs, things are bigger. It's easier to see what's going on. But I'm still missing the fact that like I can see my athletes and my results at the same time. So I'm going back and forth on that. But for this update, if you want to jump over, and by the way, the little things in parentheses, I mean, you can just hit that letter on the keyboard. So if I want to go to the public display, I hit P and jump straight over there. If I want to go to the action keys, hit K. If I want to go back to the results, hit R. So it is easy to go back and forth, either by clicking or using a keyboard. Obviously, if you're a timer, you know seeing your mouse in the direct sunlight can be hard. Now, my head timer had a good recommendation. He made his mouse cursor bigger. He made it, I think, bright purple or red or something. And he also put the trailing character on. So, you know, as the mouse moves, you can see the trailing, like a comet going across the screen. So there's things you can do to help. But the thing is, you can press R and A and Q and different things. Now, the quick results, it puts you down here. So once you get inside here, you're stuck. You got, type a name in or whatever. I don't have the athlete here. I don't know. Kendra, I guess. So there's a couple. So once you're in here, you have to click back out, but you can still use the keys in here. Because obviously, once you're in here, you can type a name in. So I don't want to jump you around the tabs as you're trying to type a name in. Okay, so that is the clock screen. Let me scroll through real quick and look at what else is new. I've got my notes on this on the left. So I'll probably pause my recording and pick it back up in a second. Oh yeah, and one other thing I did is if you look at the settings screen, the software now supports all of the newest Canon camera models. So there's the number of Canon models that the software support has probably more than doubled now, or at least doubled. So this should be all the newest models out there. The Canon website advertises one more newer SDK than what I have, but the actual downloads page does not offer it yet. So this truly is the latest and greatest Canon integration. And I've luckily had some users that tested like the 7D and some of the other models that wouldn't work before, and they work just fine now. So that's or maybe it's the T7. And I know I've had others test other models, but so that is an enhancement with this update. Another thing is, if you look over here on the Advanced tab, this really comes in handy for those who maybe don't have a reader hooked up, but they want to offer the Quick Results TV. Maybe they have simply like a number keypad. I saw, I think, Florida Race Day Timing had a really clever setup where he had a stand, like a little sign, and it had a keypad, and it said, hey, type your number in that's next to the TV. And so the Quick Results TV is a really cool feature. Of course, you can set it up to where as people walk up to a TV, in fact, I can try to pull it up while I'm talking to you. As people walk up to a TV, let's do the, what is it? Love LK 5K run sign up. So as people walk up to a TV, it can show their performance. And so let's go to, this is one of the races I used it at. So you see here that as people walk up, it shows their performance and all their stuff. And I've improved the screen here to where I saw some of the text was being cut off. And so, but anyways, it still got their name, their time, and all that stuff. And I've done this for a few races, and so the lighting wasn't the best here, but people love this feature. I had a long line. In fact, I may do multiple of these because they're so popular. But anyway, so the thing is, when you have this screen open, in fact, let me pull it open for you. In the past, it would say, stand next to this TV if you want, like, whatever. And in fact, if I leave that blank, I think it'll still say that. So if I go, let me just pull up this race here, I guess. Quick Results TV. Just pull both races in. Since I got a reader attached, it should say it, I believe. So the text that appears here, looks like there's a tag being picked up. So when there's no results, it just shows basic information. But the stand here, if you want your results text, was hard-coded. And so obviously that's a problem if you are located in a different country, speak a different language, or if you don't have an RFID reader hooked up to your quick results CV. You may simply have a number pad or a laptop out there. You may just tell people, hey, type your number in to the next CV or whatever. So now you can give any instructions you want on the quick results CV. So if I go back, I really need to detach that. I don't want it to be picking up tags, but if I go back and put different text in there, that's the text that it'll display. That's the whole point of that. Another improvement that I made, of course, I've got a list of 8 to 10 bugs that have been found over the past few months, which is not a tremendous amount because a lot of them are kind of minor. But the one thing that I found, and in fact, someone found, and they told me, is that on the public display, that the team results doesn't 100% always match the true printed results. And so I overhauled how it's calculating the team results. And so now I could not find a situation now where it doesn't match. And so I feel good about that. So that's another improvement with this update. And another thing I found is that whenever I use the public display and it's scrolling through the list of names, as it was pushing the names up, if you had it showing more than one result, I found that it wasn't resizing the text in there correctly. So the names can kind of not fit in a box and you only see maybe just the first name or whatever. So all that's been improved so that the names and everything should fit and look correct. And finally, I guess I'll say that the big emphasis over the past few weeks, besides the redesign of the clock screen and stuff like that, is there's again been a few users, and again I think now there's been some that didn't have 4 gigs of RAM. 4 gigs of RAM. They had more, and they did find some combination, and I couldn't figure out exactly what their setup was that was different than mine, because they would email me their database, and I could hammer the system, flooding it with reads, printing results at the same time, doing everything I could think of, and it wouldn't miss a beat. It would work fine. But I think the one thing they may have had set up that I didn't was maybe the live export, where you can have the software automatically generating text files out on your computer, or you can have it sending them out across the web or whatever. And so it could be that that's what was going on. So all those, over the past few weeks, I've gone through, and everywhere I could find any hesitation, I've made it to where it should not lock up, should not freeze. So this update should be way more stable. Obviously this is new, so we may find something, but I've been really trying to hammer it over the past week, knowing that, hey, the fall season's coming, and if your season's looking like mine, it's going to be insane. So I really hope that this is such a solid update that I'm not having, I'm focused. I can focus on me timing instead of helping everyone else with any headaches or problems or any hesitations with the software or whatever. I think this is going to be a really solid update. But so that's the main focus with this update, is stability and ease of use. So I really hope you like the new redesigned clock screen and create race screen. And if you find any problems at all, let me know right away. Of course, I'll jump right on it, because I don't want to suffer from that same problem. And of course, if you multiply that problem across 600 people using it or more, actually, it could not be a fun weekend for me if people are having problems. So anyways, hope you guys enjoy it. You guys are amazing users and always friendly, so I appreciate that. And I hope you all have a great fall season.